Welcome to this great webinar that we have, which is part of the buildup to the biggest and I think most important claims event that the industry gets to partake in, where claims gets to shine and be front and center, and that's Connected Claims 2022, which is coming up this November. This is one of the first webinars to lead up to it, where we have a panel of people who you're also going to see Connected Claims, talking about the things we're going to get into in Connected Claims, whetting your appetite for what's to come. And today we're talking about CX. So one of the key buzzwords that we've all been focused on, very heavily since the pandemic hit and lockdowns and needing to rethink the whole customer experience. But now it's settled in. It's par for the course. It's not just a buzzword where we're sort of in an emergency figuring out how do we deliver claims, customer experiences, customer journeys. Now we're thinking about this is part of the way that we operate. What does it mean to customer retention? What does it mean to driving customer value? And what's going to make the most impact there? So we're not just trying to keep the lights on, which was our initial reaction, understandably. Now we're seeing CX, if I can say that, as a really strategic driver of the ultimate value of our business. And it's always nice when claims gets to be thought of that way, instead of just, we bring in all the money and you spend it all, which is certainly something many of us have heard over and over again. As a former chief claims officer, I certainly got those jokes myself. CX in claims is critical because we're delivering the ultimate product. So we are the ones, I think, who get to have the strongest impact on customer lifetime value for those who really see us in action. So it's a key thing. And that's what we're going to be talking to today with this great panel. So we have a mix of perspectives from lots of different parts of the industry, and not just P&C. We also have the life and annuities and disability space represented as well. But we have Lori Pond, who joins us from Michigan, from the Auto Club Group, a AAA carrier. We have where she's Director of Claims Innovation and Strategy, I should say. We have Don Jones, who's the head of claims for MassMutual, bringing the non-P&C perspective, although Don used to be a P&C guy as well, so he's got that background too. And we have Andrew Lipton, who's the VP of Cyber Claims for AmTrust Financial. So really quite a mix of perspectives and situations, and the words customer experience take on extremely different meanings for each of the three panelists and the business that they represent. And so we're gonna have a really rich conversation today. I am your moderator. I'm Bryan Falchuk. I'm the author of The Future of Insurance and host of the podcast series by the same name, and the managing partner of Insurance Evolution Partners. And I get to have fun by doing these events regularly with folks like the panel we have today. And what makes these most interesting is the Q&A, which is on all of you, the audience. So please do pop those questions in the little Q&A button you have at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Don't put them in the chat, put them in Q&A, and we will get to them after some opening thoughts and really dig into what you want us all talking about. And I should say, you don't have to wait until the Q&A portion. You can pop those questions in at any time. As soon as that brilliance strikes you, just put your question in. So with that, I'm going to turn to the panel and get some thoughts on CX and how it can really change the value game and the retention game and the customer lifetime value game when it comes to claims impact on the bottom line, not just from what it costs, but actually from creating true value. Lori, I'd love to open with your perspective, and I'm really curious how this is going to play out, given the three very different places that each of you reside in. So Lori, over to you.
Thanks, Bryan. Great to join the conversation. As you stated, at ACG, I lead innovation and strategy for our insurance P&C products, primarily auto, home, personal umbrella. So customers, both internal and external, are at the heart of everything that we do. I think with the number of global events and changes that have shaped our industry over the past couple of years, we really need to rethink our traditional operating models, create new and innovative ways that we can engage our staff and our customers. Expectations have been supercharged, and we have really leaned into digitization and innovation to help us automate some of the transactional pieces, deliver in a frictionless way. And I've been a sales agent, and I've also been in claims for the past 15 years. And in my opinion, it's one of the most important moments of truth in the insurance life cycle. It can make or break that relationship with your customer. And I'm glad you did call out, we do have to pay, and there's a lot of expense on the claim side, but the type of value we can bring to building lasting bonds with our customers and our staff is not lost on me, having worked on both sides of the business. We have initiated some really amazing partnerships to supercharge CX, specifically leveraging the power of our InsurTech and FinTech partners. We're really not losing to InsurTechs, we're partnering, smart partnering, and we're doing a lot of co-design thinking. Those sessions have been amazing. We go all the way down to the adjuster level, where we are in our contact center level, where we are at the table with our partners, providing thought leadership, co-designing from a wireframe level. We lean into A/B testing for our partners that gives us a voice in how the innovation is shaped. So we are very excited that many of our partners in the InsurTech space, FinTech space, need our thought leadership around what's going to make sense to a claim professional, an insurance professional. And just as an example, we just A/B tested negative sentiment with our bidirectional texting tool. So now we have badge level data, predictive analytics that is driving our team members, both our managers and our adjusters, into chats that potentially need a service recovery. So really it's automation at scale that's allowing us to provide better, more seamless CX. I'm seeing across the space advisory boards. I'm fortunate enough to be on several advisory boards for some of our technology partners, and we're really helping work together to deliver those amazing experiences and give thought as to what's causing friction with the carrier, and how can our partners help us deliver a reimagined way of providing service at that key moment of truth. Something else that we're leaning into is upskilling our staff. As we automate more of the transactional, how can we deliver better training, better development plans? So we just recently implemented a state-of-the-art learning management platform specifically in claims. We have a Claim Academy team at ACG, and these are instructional designers, graphic artists, and trainers with a lot of design experience. So the type of platform that we have been able to take advantage of is gamified. We have a leaderboard. Our staff is super competitive. So we're seeing gains there. And then just leveraging the agility of our tech partners, we're seeing partnership across our FinTechs and InsurTechs, so that when you talk about communication, we can text you from a multiplicity of platforms. Our APD platform, Estimatics platform, our home platform. We could text you from our FinTech, from our bidirectional texting platform. We're very excited to see partnerships across the space where we can start to centralize some of those communications, so you have one thread to work through your insurance claims. So we're leaning in. Right now we're beta testing, our InsurTech and our FinTech is beta testing, sending payments through the bidirectional texting platform. So that's one less connection point and one less friction point. So we're really excited about that. And in terms of predictive analytics, to drive better CX, when you file an auto claim with ACG, we're sending inputs to optimize what is the most optimal inspection path for you, depending on the age of your car, your geography, your impact points. And we are also maximizing our staff to go look at those severe losses that potentially need eyes on site. On the CAT side, we are using AI and predictive modeling for better assessment of impact, response, and resource deployment. And recently we did a business process mining pilot and leveraging AI to look at the number of transactions we have and identify process friction. So those are just a few examples, but I'm really excited to see that intersection of people, process, data, and tech coming together to allow us to deliver in that moment of truth.
Yeah, Lori, there's a number of words that you used or didn't use that I think it's really critical in kind of our attitude towards a lot of this. You never said the word vendor. You've only said the word partner. And I think that's critical. And you even brought up this, like, we're not going to lose to the InsurTechs. There's always been this, kind of legacy versus InsurTech feeling. And I know it's not necessarily against solution providers so much as InsurTech carriers versus legacy carriers, but there's nothing combative in the thinking about things as a partnership, whether that's an InsurTech carrier or an InsurTech or FinTech solution provider. And I think that's really critical because CX isn't competitive. So if you're kind of engaging in how you're solving all this from this collaborative standpoint to begin with, I mean, it's a minor point, right? But it's actually not. It sort of sets the tone for it. And there's so many things that you talked about that I think bring that home. It's like, well, when you go in with this open collaborative view, look at everything that can come from it. All the testing, all, it's like curiosity wins and you get to figure out the right way to do it. So I love a lot of little nuggets here that unsurprisingly, we already got a question. So I know that that people are engaging with this. So thank you for those thoughts. Dawn, if I can shift over to you, different context, different situation. And you and I have talked about this too, that unlike PNC, we're sure you could have a third party claimant in life insurance. I know there's other things that MassMutual does as well. The person you're dealing with in the claim is not the customer because the customer is not alive anymore. So that's another wrinkle to just the whole situation to begin with. I'm curious, as you think about CX, what are the things that you and your team are engaging in to create value going forward, and not just keeping the lights on, which was important, but we've sort of moved past that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. So good morning, everybody. It's really good to be here this morning to be part of this conversation. And as Brian mentioned, I'm Don Jones, head of claims for MassMutual. And I also have a background in PNC claims, which constitutes the majority of my career. So it's been great for me to see kind of different segments of the insurance vertical throughout my career. But you're exactly right, man, Brian. When we're talking about CX and the customer experience, here at MassMutual, my team is responsible for servicing various lines of business, as you just kind of alluded to, life policies, disability claims, disability income, annuity claims, life waiver or disability waiver claims, and long-term care claims. So, although, these products that I'm kind of servicing right now in my role look a little bit different from the product lines that I've been accustomed to servicing over the course of my career, the mission remains one and the same. We are here to really provide a noble purpose of providing protection and peace of mind products and services to consumers and our customers when it really matters the most. And I always say that this is particularly true for claims, of which I'm a firm believer that claims is in the business of helping people to solve problems to the extent money and caring can do that. And here at MassMutual, we are really, really super focused on, we are really obsessed with the customer experience and really making the claims process as easy as possible through that experience at the time of claim. Today, I just really want to share a few thoughts in terms of what we're doing, what we're focusing on, that really allows us just to, be a strong partner to not only our external partners and constituencies, but also our internal partners and constituencies. And what I mean by that, we're always obsessed about really building long-lasting partnerships that really make the claim process and the life cycle of that process not only impactful, but personal and meaningful at the moment of truth. When I think about the industry, traditional tension, I think Bryan kind of touched on it. There's kind of been that traditional tension or friction, if you will, between the customer experience and claim costs, if you think about it over time, and the trade-offs that result. I think that is really a thing of the past when you think about how we're looking at trends and how they're starting to converge to really spark an evolution in the claim space. I think we all can agree that customer expectations are just continually changing and changing really, really rapidly. And that's really being driven by online experiences, by, industries that don't look like us, or, companies that don't look like the insurance industry. When you think about just all of the digital transformation that's in flight right now, just in the market, across the market, and within varying industries, consumer expectations are just changing really, really fast. And that's really being driven by online experiences. You think about banks, you think about retailers, you think about a term that I've kind of coined, digital bellwethers outside of the insurance sector. They're really, I would say, just creating really havoc in this industry of what I would say the customer experience. They're really, really just making sure that we can step up and start to deliver a service experience that really, really resonates with our consumers and prospective customers. I would say, today's customers really expect, and we all know this, a seamless digital experience. And they really expect to do business with companies that understand them, that understand their products, that understand the needs that they have for their families and themselves, and really products and services that are tailored to their specific needs. So the technology today and the innovation that's really changing the landscape, not only of the world of insurance, but really just quite frankly, the world. I think Lori touched on it, tech giants and insurtechs, fintechs, they're all introducing solutions that really fundamentally alter the landscape. in a fun way, but also in a competitive way, from modular infrastructure, advanced analytics, to new data sources and automated operations. We are heavily invested in that space here at MassMutual, not just in claims, but as a firm. We're on this digital transformation that's really going to reimagine not only how we go to market, how we sell our products, how we market our products, but also how we service our products. So, I think it's really relevant that, forward-thinking insurers, and we certainly, feel like we're a forward-thinking insurer here at MassMutual. We're really focused on seizing those new tools and technologies just really as a way to reimagine how the claims organization operates and delivers that experience. And really our vision here at MassMutual in claims is really, really, I would say, simple. And we call it our set vision. We want to deliver a personalized, exceptional experience through speed, efficiency, and transparency, with a cherry of advocacy and empathy that's kind of filtered on top there, that really allows us just to kind of personalize that moment that beneficiary or that customer may be going through. If it's a disability claim for someone who maybe is injured, or they have a disability or an illness that prevents them from working or really managing their company. So that can be really stressful as well. So for us, it's really being focused on just embracing a more balanced, and what I would like to call a purpose-driven claims approach that enables our team. And really, I would say I would offer the industry to provide a differentiated value proposition to customers through those exceptional experiences. But also at the same time, I think a purpose-driven claims strategies really create value for themselves through highly efficient, data-driven operations that really integrate throughout the claims function and the rest of the enterprise. And that's what we're focused on. We really strongly partner with data science partners here at MassMutual. We really have a lot of partnerships and really collaboration throughout insurance operations, with our digital operations partners, and with all of our partners here within our firm and outside our firm, that really enables us just to kind of look at our business a little bit differently and really look at our business towards the future. Because as I mentioned, the customer experience is really a strategic imperative for MassMutual. And our claims organization just is really focused on playing a super, super huge role in helping to define that customer sentiment and brand loyalty. I mean, you think about it, when someone has a claim, it's not their best moment. I mean, they're having an issue, they've lost someone, or they can't go to work, or maybe they at an age where they can't care for themselves, and the family has to be in a position to maybe seek service for them to be in a position where they can just take care of a family member who's an aging family member. So we have a variety of different opportunities that really allows us just to get in there, use the technologies that we're using today, reimagine those technologies through data, through transformation, and through process improvements that allows our claims organization to really leverage that data and implement new technologies and thoughtful looking processes and architecture that will enable carriers and our firm to balance both goals in a way that aligns with our overall strategy and vision. The solutions today really require a mindset and dedication to move the needle. And what I mean by that is that automation is really becoming pervasive in most every industry. And you think about it, insurance. Here at MassMutual, we're doing a lot with robotics. We're doing a lot with OCR and NLP, and just using those advanced technologies and analytics that are really going to enable us to look at our business really critically and really differently. Like other businesses, insurance carriers are creating efficiencies. We need to be doing that and reducing costs by implementing automated processes where it makes sense to do so. So I would say, digital access to products and services. I mean, we are really super focused on that. But at the same time, providing a personal touch that really, feels like we're being empathetic in that moment for that customer, how and when they need us the most. And our focus here really is that while automation is something that we're really focused on, and obsessed on, we're also just talking about balancing automation with empathy. And really, I think our focus needs to be about just, when we think about customer retention, and that's an important metric in terms of evaluating that automation effectiveness, and how that can really play an integral role in terms of how we think about the automation that's really going to give us the greatest value in delivering that exceptional experience at the time of claim. So, we're using a lot of automation in just so many different ways. We're looking at data in so many different ways. And how do we just really balance the two and make sure that we're not over optimizing in terms of automation? Obviously that's where the industry is going, where it's shifting to. but just really making sure that the claims process is one where the interactions and the micro engagements with that customer can be amplified in a meaningful way, a good way. And really, depending on how customers internalize and receive those interactions, is really going to help us really start to chart a different course in the future. And I think it's just paramount to make sure that how we do that really gives us the opportunity just to kind of reimagine our value proposition and our brand. You know, when you think about just how the consumer landscape is changing and shifting, and Bryan and I, we've talked about this on a number of different conversations. You just think about how, you know, the demographics here in the US are really shifting and how dynamic that is going in different directions when you think about millennials and the Gen Zs and how they're going to be a majority, you know, portion of our population in the future, and how they increasingly are demanding self-service and digital access in ways that are really going to keep us, you know, hyper-focused on how we can really service them and how we can deliver that human touch. So for us, it's about balancing, you know, knowing your customers' preferences now and how those preferences will evolve in the future. Because I really believe the future insurance is now, and it really requires an agile approach in meeting that shifting consumer demand and maintaining a competitive advantage to really grow our brand and to grow our value proposition and to really deliver a service that allows us to compete at the highest level. So for us here at MassMutual, when it comes to delivering that exceptional, personalized, you know, claims experience, when it really truly matters the most, we are really super hyper focused on just a number of ways that we're going to be looking at how we can reimagine the claim process, not only today, not only tomorrow, but well into the future. That's going to resonate with our customers at a very, very high level.
That's great, Don. I appreciate that, and I think if there's, you mentioned a lot of things you're doing, a lot of ways that you're thinking about it. I love the use of transparency along with, you know, speed and efficiency. Yes, those things matter, but you also need to think about, you know, when you can't be fast or super efficient, you should still be open and honest and keep them right. It all speaks to this sort of purpose, values, what do you say, personal and meaningful, right? That's not always the same thing as fast. Sometimes fast is a component of that. There's more to the equations. It's not just automate and be done. Values driven. I love that. Thank you for the perspective from MassMutual. Andrew, I'm going to turn to you now. And again, a totally different context. Cyber claims looks and feels nothing like auto claims or homeowners claims or, you know, disability or life claims. It's a wild space. I've had the pleasure of being in it myself. It's crazy stuff. But how do you think about this here? Because you've got numerous different sort of customers of the claim experience, the end, you know, customer of your insured. You've got the brokers to think about. You've got the insured themselves. You've got a number of solution providers. And then there's always, you know, is there a regulatory issue afoot here? And I mean, there's so many complicated aspects to this. How do you even begin with customer experience when you're thinking about cyber? I'd love to hear your thoughts on CX in the cyber context.
Well, thanks so much for the setup there, Bryan. I think I would agree with you and many others in the cyber insurance sub-industry, I would say, agree that the situation is a bit complicated, but let me give you my 2 cents about CX and why, you know, at AmTrust Cyber, we're highly focused on that as we continue to develop our cyber claim program where I lead the team there. So I think the most important part about figuring out how to improve CX is to understand it first. So in order to do that in cyber, what you have to do, and what we've done, is you sort of sit down and you blueprint out what is the customer experience during a cyber incident from A to Z. What does that life cycle look like? Not just on our end. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the policyholder, and from A to Z, what does that look like from FNOL to adjustment to payment? What does it look like? And so, you know, increasingly in the cyber insurance space, what we observed, and something that we tie into how we you know, constantly look to improve CX, is that, you know, cyber insurance is unique where the losses that occur, and just to preface, AmTrust is one of the largest workers' comp insurers in the country, as well as a very large small business insurance carrier. You know, our primary customer base is small businesses and small business owners. So when, you know, with respect to cyber insurance and cyber incidents, you're dealing with a populace and the type of incident and types of policies and losses where the customers aren't really familiar with what exactly is happening, right? As opposed to other types of insurance and other products where the loss is something that someone has probably experienced before, like something like damage to their home or damage to their car, or being sued for a liability claim. That's something that is more in the collective knowledge of the populace. Dealing with a business email compromise or a ransomware attack or a misdirected wire payment to someone that you thought was one of your vendors but actually isn't, it's someone impersonating that vendor, is a new experience. And so when we think about that, the first thing we think of in the life cycle of the claim is, how can we be not just the financial backstop, right, for our insureds? How can we be their cybersecurity counselors throughout the life cycle of the claim? How can we do that in a way that increases their satisfaction with our services and then creates a kind of customer stickiness such that year after year, there is no question that they want to buy an AmTrust cyber product because they know that there's a kind of patient bedside manner that we take with those insureds from A to Z. So it's an interesting discussion too, because with cyber insurance, I think in the industry, and you think about insurtechs and you think about other sort of insurance partners in the space that offer different kinds of digital solutions to certain issues. There are some in the industry who would say, cyber insurance has a very unique connection to the tech space, to the insurtech space, right? It seems to be kind of a seamless connection where cyber insurers that are involved with cybersecurity issues and things of high-level technology should also be involved with vendors who offer high-tech solutions to certain problems, right? Well, one of the things we think about too is the sort of the question that hangs over our head: is there a sort of law of diminishing returns there? And by that, I mean, sometimes the higher tech the solution is to a certain CX problem, or rather to any problem, the sort of less of the return on CX benefit on the other end, right? Sometimes the quickest, most digital, most what have you sort of solution to a problem within a claim or a set of claims might not be the best in terms of what the return is on customer experience. And so ironically, this is something that I say to folks in our department: sometimes the analog solution is the better solution in terms of adjusting the claim and maintaining the same level of CX, as opposed to what would be a quicker, more digital solution, which sometimes is a better cost benefit to the carrier. Sometimes it isn't, right? And so I guess to answer your first question, again, the critical issue we think about in terms of how do we create not only a foundational culture of CX in our cyber claim and incident response business is, we have to understand it first, right? And so that's something that we focus on within cyber insurance. But look, as I mentioned before, patient bedside manner. Frequently the way that we take on cyber incidents when a first notice of loss is submitted to us, it's a small business owner who's never experienced something like this before, and they are scared. It is their worst day, right? And it's our job to parrot off a comment that Don made before. It's our job to be our best on their worst day. So when we get the call, and this is something I can touch on as well in terms of incident response, we centralize all of our incident response functions. And so AmTrust is with the customer, with the insured throughout the life of the incident. We don't rely on our partners to sort of adjust and respond to incidents on our behalf, and then we are involved. We're actually involved throughout the lifetime of the claim, such that by the end of it, we're hoping that the customer says AmTrust Cyber is our partner in this fight. But with respect to the native fear that folks feel when they experience an incident, it's on us not only to provide that kind of calming, soothing, reassuring handheld service for them throughout the life of the claim. We're also sort of tasked with educating as well. And that can be a very difficult back and forth. Someone who's a cybersecurity expert who works in cyber claims could sort of just go about their day and their job without having to feel as though they need to educate the policyholder about what's occurring, why it's occurring, why is it this severe, why do we need to do what we need to do for your business. But for us, we know that we have to do that. And so how can we best communicate to the customer things that are reassuring, but also educating, and also in a way that helps them resolve the claim where we're with them side by side. And so I hope that gives a bit of a more generic overview of the way that we feel CX plays into ours. But without a doubt, now our claim program. Without a doubt, though, cyber insurance as a sort of sub-industry of the insurance industry at large is entering into this next phase. I'd say post ransomware surge and post large corporate data breaches and things like that, where the focus of cyber insurance is going to be on that middle and small market as opposed to just the Fortune 1000 or others that are near there. And so because of that, I think what will separate excellent insurance carriers from those that are more average in this particular space are those that offer that type of customer service proposition and service, frankly, that insureds can really latch onto and really feel as though we are their cybersecurity consultants, advocates, partners, and things of that nature. And the other part that lends itself to that is whether or not that cyber insurer is offering services other than just the insurance policy and incident response to be able to help them out with their cybersecurity strategy. So customers have to ask themselves, is this cyber carrier offering proactive services to my business? Are they offering tech-based solutions to scan my business for open vulnerabilities? Are there other things that we can do? I know in our program, what we like to do is our partners in the law firm and DFIR space, digital forensic space, we approach them in the beginning and we say, is there anything that you could offer to our policyholders pre-claim right now to potentially prevent that claim from happening in the future, whether that be a paid service or potentially a complimentary service? And you'd be surprised, there are many folks in the space who are willing to sit down with our policyholders for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, free of charge to just openly discuss, what is your cybersecurity program look like right now? And for a small business, what can we do right now to help you? And in conjunction with, many small businesses have managed service providers that run their IT for them outside of the business. How do we connect to those managed service providers to give a more holistic cybersecurity feel to this cyber insurance experience? So those are the various points that we're focused on in terms of increasing and maintaining a very high level of CX throughout the process.
Well, I think it's interesting, and this is what I was curious about, given the pretty extreme breadth that we have in terms of backgrounds and the kinds of claim situations that each of you represents or that make up the bulk of your organization's claim experiences. Yet there's some very strong similarities. Andrew, what you're describing, bedside manner, is exactly the same thing that, Don, you're describing when, someone's lost a loved one, or maybe they're facing losing their independence, and, now their living situation is different because of illness. And so you're stepping into a much bigger issue than just like, I need X money to pay Y bills, to afford care, or to get the forensics folks in and send the notifications and figure out what was lost and what wasn't and notify, whatever. And Lori, people might think, but auto's smaller and it's clear and it's, well, you have literal bedside manner there as well, because there's bodily injury. Same thing, homeowners, people get hurt. Liability matters. There's some injury at the heart of that. But even, especially modern cars, some of those auto physical damage matters are pretty complicated. And then add in how long it takes to get parts and availability of rental cars and all the other complications. Even if people understand the underlying issue or the underlying event because it seems day to day and it's something they've been around, versus situations where they clearly don't, like a pretty extreme cyber matter, there's still an aspect of feeling lost and needing help in that bedside manner. So there's a lot of similarity here, despite the disparity in the core subject matter. And I think that's clearly a lesson. We've got tons of other questions, so I should be quiet and stop rambling because they've been pouring in, which is great. I want to start with one from Stephen Applebaum that is fantastic. And it's ironic because the last thing I saw before joining this Zoom was a LinkedIn post of someone had a picture of Jeff Bezos, and it was saying about having this obsessive compulsive focus on customers, not competitors. And often we do the opposite, right? We get caught up in, well, this carrier is doing that. Everyone talks in this industry about FOMO. Once a couple of logos are on that solution's logo sheet, everyone kind of falls in line and they all need to have that kind of solution. And we see that, time and time again. And the opposite isn't like we're generally not competing on claims. We're thinking about the customer because we're living that and we're hearing their pain firsthand. So maybe we benefit from having this different perspective. But Stephen's question is, we've all talked about Amazonification, Amazon-like levels of experience. Don, you and I talked about this when I had you on the podcast, and you're hinting at this before. It's these other digital experiences people have that set the bar. If we think of Amazon as a 10, which people can debate that, but let's presume Amazon or Amazon-like digital, customer experience is kind of the 10. A, where are we? And B, could we get to that? And maybe I'd even ask, should we get to that? Is that the bar we should be measured against as much as it's the hype bar that we seem to be measured against? So kind of, Lori, I'm going to start with you because you had the biggest break, but where do you see us stacking up against that sort of Amazon, or people throw out Netflix too, or whoever else you want to use, but that digital native, digital bellwether, to use Don's term, kind of experience? Where do we stack up? Can we meet that bar? If we're not, should we meet the bar? How do you see that question?
Well, we certainly aspire to deliver more frictionless experiences like Amazon. They're great with predictive analytics, really next best action, keeping you proactively informed. I would not say we're currently at a 10. Our CX surveys tell us we're not there with all of our claims service. In many instances, to your point, you don't have to get to full digitization. If it's an empathetic, engaging experience that bonds the customer, we see a lot of 10s even on really, really complex claims. So the role of our team member providing that empathy, and even if we're not speaking to you, we chat with you, and if we're proactive. So I definitely see opportunities for us to engage more impactfully. We can't boil the ocean. Bryan, we have a lot of systems, and through merger and acquisition, we have a lot of tech debt. So we're focusing and doubling down on removing friction and really partnering with technology providers that help us hyper-personalize. So we're not there. But I appreciate the question, but we certainly aspire.
But I think the other part, and you mentioned, is it doesn't mean we always should. So
Right.
And there's another question out there that we might get to around that, like, is the answer 100% digital in everything? And is that kind of the place we're going? And if that's what it takes to be truly Amazon-like or whoever, then that's where the second part was sort of like, well, should we be a 10, or should we be a 10 in our context? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you can be a 10 at both. I think as a member organization, we want to provide customers with channel of choice. So I've seen less on the doubling down on 100% digitization, because there are certain claims, fatalities. If I lose my home, I'm going to want to speak to someone about level setting. I will then potentially engage in digital channels, but we are a membership organization. We want to provide the most optimal channel of choice, just like we're trying to provide the most optimal inspection method. So for us, it's being there for our customers, meeting them where they want to be met. Yeah. And doing that in a way that's going to give us a 10 is certainly what we aspire to do.
Oh, that's great. Don, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I love the question. I'm going to come at it from a different perspective. You say, are we a 10?
Don, we can barely hear you. I don't know if you...
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
A little closer. Sometimes I have problems with Zoom, so I'm going to take it from a different vantage point. So you say, are we a 10? Should we aspire to be like Amazon? And I'm going to speak as an industry. I don't think we should aspire to be like Amazon. I think the industry needs to aspire who we are as an industry and who we can be as an industry to our consumers and prospective customers. And what I mean by that, and from a claims perspective, I think when we're talking about, digitization and technology and automation, all the things that we're working on for all of the right reasons, and while we're so super focused here at MassMutual on balancing, like I described at the outset, automation with empathy and the human touch, I think we have to be careful. And why I say that is that as an industry, do we want to be known as being transactional or relational? Or can we be both? And even if it's transactional, we can't lose the relational aspect of the customer experience. So if folks can go on, their phones or whatever device that they have to get their needs met from a, customer service perspective, whether it's getting a policy issued or a claim filed, We need to be working on all of that technology and providing full transparency through the end-to-end customer experience. But we should never, ever lose the relational aspect where people feel like you're really advocating for them, you're empathetic about their specific needs. And here's the other thing too, as we're building all of this, I think we have to be careful not to treat claims as monolithic. And what I mean by that is you set up best practices, as you set up processes and procedures, and although, an auto claim, and Lori knows this, because I was in that space, every claim can come over looking like the claim you got an hour ago, or yesterday, or the claim you're gonna get tomorrow. And life insurance, I dare to say, if you got the same face amount, although it's a different, person who has passed away, it could look and feel the same to someone on my claims team. I often say that the secret sauce is, how do we personalize that experience? How do we train our examiners and our staff to really get behind and get underneath the covers to really understand those case-specific needs of that claim, even if they look the same, even if it looks like the claim that they got an hour ago, or the same claim they're going to get, 2 days from now, because they often do. How do we pull back the covers? How do we identify what those needs are and really start to personalize the experience and not treat claims as they're all, the same? And that's what we're focused on here, driving best practices, automation, technology, and everything that we're trying to drive towards. But it has to have that equal setting on personalizing the experience and really delivering a service experience that meets the case-specific, unique needs of that customer in that moment.
That's really well said. Not becoming transactional, because Amazon's transactional. There's nothing wrong with that in their context. And it doesn't matter how many claims you've seen, that insured, that claimant, that customer, that person who's experienced it, this is the first and only time they will ever see that. Even if they have more than one car accident in their life, it's never going to be exactly the same. So yeah, your own biases and sense of, well, it's just like the last $1 million claim I saw. Not to that person. Nothing is. Andrew, what about your take on this? Is this even relevant in the cyberspace?
Oh, absolutely. And I love the notion of the sort of intersection between transactional and relational. Is so interesting. And as I said in my earlier comments, we are very focused on the relational aspect of cyber insurance and the claim experience on the part of the policyholder. And so, I think in comparison to Amazon as a 10, I feel like it's a different category, and I get concerned if we're really sort of comparing apples to apples there. But I'm gonna do my best to compare them. So for instance, and this is sort of speaking off the cuff. So Amazon, in terms of customer satisfaction with that, let's say that part of that is the sort of instantaneous response, right? Of I need something, I can find it immediately, I can buy it immediately, and I know that it's coming, right? So for instance, I have a list of things I need to buy for my house, and I especially need paper towels. And so I know I can go on the app, I can find paper towels, I can buy them, and I know that once I do that, it's coming. So unless and until Mr. Bezos has drones that can fly and just immediately drop it onto your house, you know that it's on its way. The actual product is not being delivered immediately, but it's happening. Something is in process. Your problem, so to speak, is in the midst of being solved almost instantaneously. The way that I would compare that to the way that we handle cyber claims at AmTrust is our unique incident response program experience. So for instance, what we realized was we felt that customers would have a better experience if they had a 24/7, 365 hotline that led directly to AmTrust, as opposed to one of our insured partners that help us adjust the claims, whether it's legal or DFIR. And so once someone calls that number to submit an FNOL or to just let us know that an incident is occurring, a human being picks up the phone, based in the US, 24/7, 365. They've been scripted with specific SLAs to discuss what's happening and to pipeline the details of the incident to us and my claims staff immediately. And that individual is actually trained from the call center staff to go through a series of comments, suggestions, and other things to tell the caller, to assure them that we see these things all the time. This may be the first time that you're seeing this, but don't worry, we work on this all the time. We're on it right now. And we know that this is a really stressful time for you, right? We know that this is a very stressful event, but if there's anything we can do to alleviate your worry, just know that we are working on it right now. And part of what we did in designing the program was to instruct our partners that help us with the 24/7 hotline that every time someone calls, once that call is over, the person that called needs to leave that call knowing that AmTrust Cyber is working on their incident right now. There is no, we have to call somebody and they'll be in the next 45 minutes to look at something and give you a call back. There's no, you called, now we're working on it. So in terms of that kind of instantaneous customer satisfaction, I think that can be something that can be compared to the sort of Amazon effect of things, and noticing that doing that as the first step of the cyberclaim life cycle it pays huge dividends down the road when more difficult issues come up. Do we have to pay this more expensive vendor to do this more expensive thing? Are we balancing the risks correctly in terms of your data privacy compliance versus your cybersecurity? Do we have to notify all of the patients of this healthcare practice, or should we pay more money to only notify the subset whose information has been breached? Those are very difficult conversations. And if the insurer has just been kind of the boogeyman in the other room during the life cycle of the claim and has not been involved on a personal level with the policyholder throughout the life cycle, those conversations later on in the claim cycle are much more difficult. And so, again, to kind of fold it back into the Amazon comparison, I like the notion of the instantaneous brain feedback of something is being worked on for what you need right now. So I hate to say that cyber claim experiences can be akin to a bounty being delivered to your house, but if I had to explain it that way and compare it, that's how I would.
Well, I think it's an interesting one where there's a huge similarity between, Lori, a lot of the claims that you see, and Andrew, you as well, where, even though no one's actually driven their car into a tree and needs an ambulance in this moment, and the car, like, it's sort of the same thing as you will get calls that are like, we see the hackers in there right now. We have the demand, the clock is ticking. I don't know how we get Bitcoin and pay them. What do we do? It's as time sensitive. And Dawn, you have people who are facing bills right now, who are lost right now, who are grieving right now, that, not to put down D&O, and there's no one representing D&O here, so I feel like I can do this. But if you get served,
D&O warrior, but
all right, so apologies. Having been in the space, I'm hurting myself, I guess. But if you get served papers as a CEO of a company that you're being sued as a D or O, that's very upsetting. And it will only come through on a Friday afternoon generally, right? And so it's going to ruin your weekend. But if you talk to the claims person Friday night, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, it's sort of the exact same thing. You're still very upset. It's not going to satisfy everything, but it's like, well, we need to prepare for, what is the case and the argument and get attorneys. And it's not as time sensitive, but there's still CX to it. There's still a need to walk them through it. It still, impacts their life. So there's an immediacy to what all three of you represent. And even when there isn't, there's still this need for people need to know that it's not when you get around to it, you'll think about possibly maybe engaging in it and maybe get it. I've got this right now. That phrase right now, I think resonates with everyone here, even those who it seems like it's not so much a right now problem. To the insured or the claimant, it is. It kind of always is. Maybe on that theme, I want to touch on another question that came up. And this is an interesting one because our friends in underwriting or in sales and the agent and broker side, they have options they can sell people to give differentiated levels of coverage, right? You can get a higher deductible or a higher limit or different coverage, or you can opt into certain, sublimits and coverages or not. You can endorse on more things. In claims, the experience is the experience, and it tends to be unified across the carrier. So maybe this carrier is known for kind of paying for, that you have some water damage in one room, they repaint your whole house kind of thing. There's some reputational things behind that. But within a carrier, we don't tend to see sort of tiers of, your policy comes with this level of claim service versus that. And the question is asking that is perhaps through digitization, does that allow for the tiering of sort of good, better, best, or, silver, gold, platinum, or titanium, or whatever the best one would be, levels of claim service? Do you see that being enabled, and should it be enabled? I think is as valuable a question. Lori, any thoughts on that? Whether we start to differentiate the service offering based on what level of product you bought?
I've seen us doing some really innovative things with product over the years. I mean, who thought we could claim a dog injury as part of an auto claim? I call it puppy pip. And you think about retailers like Best Buy, you can buy Geek Squad. So there's Hypercare. So I think as innovative as our product team is, there could be a future where you buy a certain level of service, but I think the most innovative insurers will figure out a way to connect with the insured in their channel of choice, offer that seamless service where you can navigate between channels and you have that 360 view and you're sending out proactive updates so that there isn't the need to have to provide ultimate tier, mid-tier, and full digital tier. So it's just tough, depending on the nature of the claim. I think it would be tough to say, oh, you're digital only. But innovation is innovation, Brian. I don't count it out.
All right. Who knows, maybe is the answer. Dawn, does that make sense in your space where like we'll pay you within this many hours versus that many? Or I mean, I don't know how you would differentiate this.
Well, that's an interesting question. So can you guys still hear me okay? I just want to make sure.
Yes. Yeah.
So, from a product perspective, I think there's a lot of possibilities there, but I also think you got to be very careful in terms of how you create those possibilities, particularly from a service perspective and claim perspective. Certainly if we do something like that, we need to make sure we have our legal partners at the table just to ensure we're not creating any sort of disparate treatment when we're servicing a claim. But I think we can kind of manage those challenges, if you will, if we design the process right. But to answer your question specifically, we're doing a little bit of that right now here at MassMutual. And when we talk about omni-channel, right, meeting the customers where they are, where they need to be, where they want to be, we've developed over the last several months here with our life claims process, what we call, and I know this is a coined term that's going to resonate in the P&C space, maybe not so much in the life and annuity space, but express claims, right? Where we can design a process where we're now in a position, if, claims meet a certain, criteria, level of criteria, eligibility criteria, low complexity, simple, death claims, and you can go face them out and other sort of characteristics. We're now in a position where we've redesigned our processes and we've established like specialized teams where now we're paying claims instead of in weeks, in a number of days from notice to date of payment. And fastest claims are being paid when we're really doing it well within 24 hours. So, those claims are a subset of the larger population that we're servicing. So I think that kind of gets at the kind of what you're talking about a little bit, how we can create different levels of service. And here's the other thing too, even when we offer that level of service at the first notice of loss, because that's when we capture those claims, and the beneficiary may say, they want to opt out. I don't want to go through that process. I'm just going through a really difficult time, as you can imagine right now, losing a loved one, and I need some time to process this. And I don't want to express that process or this particular claim in the payment because I'm just not ready. And we'll just handle that claim in another part of our vertical within our, claims process. So I think we're kind of scraping at the impetus in terms of we're building like these different kind of omni-channels within the claims process where we can start to spike out and segment certain aspects of our service where it makes sense, where it's really going to allow us to enhance the customer experience in meaningful ways.
That's interesting. Reminding ourselves that not everyone wants to do it that way. And that would be if we sold it that, your premium has this discount because you can only do this, but you get faster service. What happens when they're facing that situation? And then they realize, oh, I can't deal with that right now. Or, I need the concierge level, or I need that more handheld personal version. What do you upcharge them in that moment? Do you tag, well, it's $100 service fee then to, I don't know. It's an interesting question. And I think maybe Laura, to your point is, who knows, right? And 20, 30 years from now, consumers may be so different that actually they're mad if they don't have these kinds of things. I can't tell. But I think the trick with claims is no one really understands the way they're going to think and feel until their feet are in those shoes at that moment. We see this with deductibles all the time. Oh, sure, $1,000. And then, their car is smacked up or their house is a loss. And they're like, I don't have $1,000 that I can just part with like that. I should have done the $500 deductible. Andrew, is it different in your space because it's more of a B2B space? So it's less like the consumer's emotions or the personal person's, feelings, and it's more a business transaction. Does that come into play at all where they might opt for different levels and not have the same issue with it?
Well, it's an interesting question, especially in the cyber area, because, you know, as far as I can tell, and it's sort of an interesting topic for cyber claims, right? Because regardless of whether or not we're selling a $100,000 policy or a $1 million policy or a $5 million policy, it's incumbent on us to provide the same level of claim service regardless. And part of that is sort of based on my earlier comments. The way that we've designed it is that there's a sort of uniformity of quality, regardless of what type of policy holder it is or where it is. And that is obviously something that we have to focus on in terms of scalability and you know, how do we meet the demands of delivering those services. But you know, to kind of go back a bit to that topic, I don't know that a world will exist where in cyber claims there's a sort of you know, gold level membership plan versus a titanium or silver membership plan, because I think you're always dealing with the same types of incidents that require the same types of technical response, legal response potentially, but then that added premium layer of sort of carrier claim staff response on top. What we endeavor to do is to deploy that every single time. And to pair it off with what you had said in terms of being in the shoes at the time the claim comes in, we like to say that in our department, you know, no battle plan survives contact with the enemy,
Right.
no matter what. So, or as the great Mike Tyson once said, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. So that is a mentality that we carry through, and it's incumbent on us to maintain quality level of service throughout.
Yeah. No, I think it's a fascinating question, whether, you know, any of us can see it playing out right now. And then you think, well, actuarially, what would the difference to the overall expense or LAE be? Would that be enough to discount the policies, you know, for every policy? Not, you can't just discount on the ones who end up having claims. So, you know, how much of a savings does it end up really if the digital path versus the in-person path for the subset who have claims? And I don't know. But again, who knows? Who knows what it'll look like? Lori, I just keep thinking, like, would you pay half the membership fee to AAA to have an 8-hour window to have a tow truck come out versus a 2-hour or 4? Not me, but
those CSAT surveys would look terrible in the winter if I'm stuck on the side of the road or in an unsafe place. So I'm not thinking that would be a great member experience.
Right. Well, and what's going to happen to the indemnity in that period? Are they more likely to go seek, you know, an attorney? And maybe that's not the question. It's like, would you wait longer? It's, you would only follow the digital path. And so it wouldn't be, you know, necessarily that everything's worse. It's just, I've opted out of these more traditional channels, and sometimes that may not work. Who knows? But it's interesting. And I think it's maybe one we can keep in mind as things
Bryan, I would even add, just to put my old coverage lawyer hat on, I wonder if differing the experiences for the customers based on quality or based on what plan they buy have potential implications.
Yeah, it may not be legal at all
for certain coverage level exposures that the carrier just does not want to touch. It's not worth it.
Yeah, you'd need different paper, probably different claims teams even, because if the same claim people were providing 2 different levels of service. Anyway.
Also, is a bad faith standard the same?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
well, it's fascinating. This is what I call insurance interesting. It's not interesting to regular humans, but in insurance, like, this is interesting stuff. And I think that's a great note to end on. Of course, we have way more questions than we would ever have time to get to, but the good news is this doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. And that's where Connected Claims comes in. In November, you can join us in Chicago. This is the kind of stuff we'll be talking about, and real questions, real things to discuss from all of you in the audience. And the three panelists will be there. I will be there. Will be many more leaders from across the industry, and you can have these conversations live as well, because it's fascinating things going on in the most important part of insurance, and that's claims. And I will say that to any underwriter. I will argue with them that claims is better. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you to the panel. Great conversation. Really interesting things brewing. And I hope everyone can join us in November at Connected Claims in Chicago.